It's time to do business. Welcome to 25 minutes of giving you updates from the world of business here on Business Incorporated. And here's what we have prepared for you. In Ethiopia, the government is asking China to convert their dollar loans to yuan. And for Egypt, the European Commission intends to provide them with a package to support their economic measures. Central Bank of Kenya, they're looking the way of gold reserves, especially as the price drops. You're welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's start from what's going on in the oil space, where prices pushed higher for a second day on Wednesday, rising by about 2%, buoyed by hopes of progress of a U.S. trade deal with China as well as India. So we know that prices have been moving a lot these few days. So we see it back at the $62.46 after it gained almost 2%. That's a huge move in one trading session, 1.84%. WTI is even more than that, 1.97% increase, $58.37. A barrel. Oil prices climbed after reports suggested that the United States and India are close to finalizing a trade deal that could see India gradually cut imports of Russian crude, potentially lifting demand for other grades. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he spoke with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday, adding that Modi assured him that India would be limiting its oil purchases from Russia. To metals now, prices extended declines on Wednesday following their steepest daily fall since 2020 in the previous session, after an initial recovery gave way to renewed selling, with investors locking in profits and stronger dollar adding pressure. So we see the numbers. Spot gold continues the downward trend, 1.38%, and is now getting close to losing the $4,000 level. U.S. gold is, however, on the flip side, 0.7%, $4,018.30. Spot silver is red, 0.29%, $47.52 a barrel. Platinum is almost 1% up, and so is $1,533.50. Palladium is, however, in the red, 0.33%, and it's at $1,430. Strong gains we've seen in recent weeks meant that from a technical perspective, gold prices had entered an overbought territory, and this has led many traders to close positions in order to lock in profit. And that's the observation from that space. And still talking about gold, in an attempt to diversify away from dollar, the Central Bank of Kenya is joining other central banks worldwide in the scramble for gold reserves. Gold has gained more than 50% this year, reaching a record high of 4,300 for an ounce, making it the best year since 1979. Well, this increase is partly because of investors' purchasing of the precious metal as a result of worries about inflation and increasing levels of debts. Ethiopia has started talks with China to convert at least parts of their $5.38 billion it owes Beijing into yuan-denominated loans, following an example set by Kenya that boosted China's efforts to internationalize its currency, while the Ethiopia's central bank governor began discussion for potential swap with the Export-Import Bank of China and the People's Bank of China during a visit to Beijing last month. However, the People's Bank of China has not responded to this yet. The proposed switch by Ethiopia adds to a growing list of countries that are turning to the yuan for cheaper financing, including Sri Lanka, Hungary, and, of course, Kenya. The European Commission intends to provide Egypt with a package of support measures worth €75 million and supposed to be part of a high-level EU-Egypt summit scheduled for Wednesday today in Brussels. The grant is aimed at promoting socio-economic development, enhancing stability, and fostering inclusive growth, particularly for women and youth, through improved access to healthcare, education, water supply, and sanitation. Egypt has played a vital role in facilitating the signing of a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Earlier this month, Egypt also hosted an international conference dedicated to the first phase of implementing the Gaza peace agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump attended that conference along with European and Arab leaders. The funding is part of a macro-financial program adopted in March 2024, which plans to be a total of 7.4 billion euros investment in Egypt from 2024 to 2027. The summit will be attended by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, European Council President Charles Michel, and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. In addition to the 75 million euro grant, European Commission will also announce additional loans as part of the 7.4 billion euro program. Let's see what's happening at the markets now. Of course, we did see that the NGX has regained momentum and seems to be sustaining that at intraday. We saw the numbers hit 153,000 level, up more than 1%. Seems it's going to be bigger than what we had yesterday. Our major drivers, Dangote Cement still in the news. We see Aradel also sustaining that positive vibes, and WAPCO also has contributed. Wema Bank, Sterling Bank, these are the major drivers of it. Oil and gas in the green, added 240 basis points. Insurance also, consumer goods, they're all in the positive territory. Let's talk to Abdul Rashid Momo now to tell us perhaps what's happening at this time, if this is sustainable. Mr. Momo, good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So we've seen, I think this is like the second day this week, we've seen this huge move. We started this week at about 148 or so, and now we're at 153. I wonder if we know what's really driving this and if it's sustainable.
Well, this is actually the fourth day we've seen this. After I think our last week, the market actually stalled within the 147,000 points range for like 2 days, which formed like we had signs of indecisions. And that was why, because the market just settled out of breaking the old highs, all-time highs of about 140, I think 144,000 plus. So one thing, when we talk about market movement, we look more of the technical. So when market breaks an all-time high, you expect to see this kind of rallies coming up. But this kind of rally, despite we having huge movements, basically from big players, the other stocks have not really participated in this rally yet. I think what we are seeing is that the market, this set of stocks are actually leading the pack, and we expected that others might follow suit soon. And in anticipation that financials are within the corridors, so I think market seems to be prepping us up for financials coming in. So this rally is still sustainable.
Okay, so earlier this numbers were gotten at by 11:30 a.m. and we saw Dangote Cement as the major driver. Is that still the case at this time?
Yes, the same thing is still intact, because these are the same stocks that have been moving. You know, any movement from Dangote, MTN, Airtel, just name them, those BUA and others are in red, the market will still be in the green. So those are still the market makers so far.
So do you think this rally will continue until we get those results, or there's something that could?
Definitely is going to come. Really, the truth is that the market has not even started. I will say around at least 156,000 points before I start seeing some small profit. I won't say profit taking before I see the market slowing down. We've seen this kind of rallies before. It has happened last year and this year. You see these the big players that will actually lead the pack before others will follow. So definitely, this is just the beginning. The rally is not over yet.
All right, that will give hope to a lot of investors. Thank you so much, Executive Director
Thank,
Operations at TRW Stockbrokers, Mr. Abdulrashid Momo.
thank you.
Let's look at other market now. South Africa, we see, is at 107,967 at intraday. It's, however, in the red. Egypt is also in the red, and Kenya closed yesterday positive at 177.72. Moving over to the Middle East, and we see mixed color, but mostly positive. The lone negative we had at intraday Dubai, 0.03%, not so much of a fall that we see there. 5,974.09. Abu Dhabi is more than 1% in the green. Saudi Arabia almost 0.5% in the green, and Qatar 0.26% in the green. Moving over to the United States stocks futures, you'll see that they pulled back early on Wednesday after a record-setting session powered by strong corporate earnings. I know yesterday about this time we saw a red color, but the expectation was that there will be strong earnings, which was later reported. But for this morning, or for the features of today, we see it's still in the red, 0.09%. S&P also in the red, as well as NASDAQ in the red right there, while still expecting corporate results that will drive market sentiment. Moving to Asia, markets were mixed as investors are assessing trade data from Japan. Earlier today during Business Morning, we talked about how the new Prime Minister has a great plan, stimulus, to activate or reactivate some of those household spendings and deal with inflation. That's her plan. So I guess investors are looking that way. A lot of uncertainty still coming from that direction before they can make a lot of decisions. So Nikkei is in the red. The Kospi of South Korea is, however, in the green, 1.56. Hang Seng is almost 1% in the red. Look at other parts also. The Shanghai is red, while India is still on its cruise, hasn't been caught up with some of those red bugs that we see being caught up with in other markets. But now let's head to Europe and find out what investors are doing with Lars Holter. Hi Lars, good afternoon. What's the sentiment in the market intraday?
Yeah, hi there, Ini. It's interesting right now. You just showed us the U.S. markets, and you mentioned how there's not much of a reaction to those latest quarterly numbers. And I do remember, Ini, we talked about that yesterday, and I told you how in Frankfurt even they were waiting for those quarterly numbers from some of the bigger U.S. companies coming out in a hope that it would swing markets here. It didn't happen in the U.S., and of course you would think so wouldn't happen here either. So now today we're actually getting some numbers from German companies, namely SAP, which is maybe the only global player in tech that we have here. But, you know, the numbers won't come out until later tonight after close. And it is just so hard, as we're seeing with those US numbers too, to predict what's going to happen in today's market environment. Case in point, Adidas, the sportswear maker, they had a very strong quarter, as a matter of fact, that they reported on this morning. All the numbers there are good, but shares are still down about 2%. So it's really hard to predict what's going on with markets here in Frankfurt.
Yeah, sometimes we can't seem to trace the drivers and where sentiments are being fed from. But the other issue is the meeting that was supposed to hold between U.S. president and the Russian president. That we hear has been cancelled, and we're supposed to have a bit of hope there because we're supposed to talk about the war going on in Ukraine and all of that. Now that the plan of the meeting has been cancelled, how's Europe perceiving this?
Well, you know, Europe has been following those last couple of days here leading up to that meeting that now has been canceled. I got to tell you, with a shock, because for a while people here thought, and when I say here, I'm talking about Germany, but also Brussels and the broader EU level, people thought that Trump had come around finally to support Ukraine. Now he seems to be a lot closer to Russia's side again, even recently, of course, suggesting to just end the war at current battle lines, forcing Ukraine to give up, for example, the Donbas region, which is, of course, not just any region. It's very, very important economically. That's where all the resources are. Now the EU is putting together yet another package of economic sanctions against Russia, just to make sure sure that they throw in their 2 cents here, hopefully trying to get Putin to reconsider his stance here, putting more pressure on Russia. Now, among those latest sanctions, Russian oil and gas will finally be entirely banned in the EU, but that's starting in 2028. Very late. It is just shocking to many that the EU is still at this point getting 13% of its supply from Russia. Also, the EU says they are gonna look more into Russia's shadow fleet of tankers with tighter controls. And the EU also currently sits on billions of euros worth of Russian funds that are technically owned by the Russian central bank. That money is sitting in Belgium, and the EU wants to use it to back a multi-billion euro rescue plan for Ukraine, with that money covering weapon and ammunition purchases for now, but also good for fixing up the country once the war is over.
So how come the EU is finally coming around, to sanctions? I thought initially that was supposed to be off the table.
Well, it's always been difficult, and now it's seemingly possible, because Brussels has finally dropped the usual standard of looking for unanimous consent to its initiatives. Specifically, Hungary has often blocked Ukraine help. With a change of proceedings now, the EU has voted on the latest sanctions package by simple majority and not unanimously. It's also a first step to put some pressure on Hungary, often a dissenting voice, of course, in the EU Commission. And it seems Brussels is sending a strong signal towards Viktor Orban there, that it no longer accepts the role that that country is playing within the EU. And that includes, by the way, the fact that Orban had wanted to play host to not only Trump, but to Vladimir Putin, who would technically have to be arrested in any EU country based on a warrant by the International Criminal Court. Now, Ini, like we said, that meeting with Trump and Putin in Hungary, it won't happen. But some in Brussels have said that had Orban indeed welcomed Putin without having him arrested, it would have had to lead to sanctions against Hungary as well, including even a suspension within the European Union.
Oh, Lars. Well, I guess some of us did not expect that there will be a cancellation of that meeting. But, thank you so much for giving us the update, and we'll certainly follow up.
Thank you, Ini.
All right, now let's see what's happening at the crypto space. I wonder what the color is now. A lot of people say if you miss the other opportunities, this may be your opportunity to get maybe 1 Bitcoin. That would be a luxury. Well, Bitcoin is now 108,315.91. It's dropped 0.68%. Ethereum losing further at the 4,000 level. XRP, everybody seems to be in the red at this time. And some of the headlines is that our wallet associated with Ethereum Foundation, that's the organization that oversees the development of the second largest blockchain by market capitalization, shifted 160,000 Ether to an address that has previously been used for selling Ethereum. This according to data from blockchain. Also talking about blockchain, the blockchain firm behind Cardano, once touted as a scalable alternative to Bitcoin, and Ethereum has announced that it is winding down operations, triggering a steep sell-off of its native token, KDA, in a post on X. That's where that was shared. And the Hong Kong arm of Standard Chartered is gearing up to offer a digital asset trading service that's supposed to be on next month, just as the first Solana ETF goes live in the region. And talking about crypto, we did discuss yesterday how the federal government, President Bola Tinubu to be specific, is giving more attention to blockchain and asking judges to embrace it and learn more about it. Well, Ladi did follow up with that conversation earlier today on Business Morning.
Carrying out this report, we did not expect to see the numbers that we saw. We had a bit of idea of the transaction volume. Now, mind you, this transaction volume is just from retailers, from people who are doing an average of 15,000 to 25,000 naira per transaction, and not even the businesses, who are pushing like crazy amount of money, to maybe their suppliers abroad and all of that. So it's about 1 in 4 Nigerian adults, and what it means is it's the typical Uber driver, it's the person who owns a salon. There are people who are using it for pragmatic purposes. So they want to receive money, they want to send money, they don't want to have issues with chargebacks, and they just want to simplify their access and their interaction with the financial sector and make it as easy and as seamless as possible. And so you're seeing people building wealth. It's showing that out of the 26 million, about 17.7 million are actively building wealth by, investing long-term in crypto, in stable coins, with USDT coming up as the highest in transaction volume across Nigeria. And surprisingly, you're seeing people receiving more than they're even sending. So if the market is showing there's adoption, you really can't do much about it than to find ways to align with the people. And I think that is what is now happening, especially with this current news where, the CBN governor is saying, we now have people that we have told to specifically study stablecoin adoption to understand the type of regulations that, we should bring into the market to ensure that we do not stifle innovation. So I would say that regulation is looking up as we speak.
Oh yeah, regulation is looking up at more conversations around the blockchain here in Nigeria. And that's it on the program at Business Incorporated today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. For our DSTV viewers, we have to lead you to Anambra East local government area where ABGA continues its rally right there. That's for our DSTV viewers, but regular programming continues on our other platforms. I'm Ini John McCoy, and that's it for Business Incorporated. Bye-bye.